Alright, here's our project for today. It's always something. So we have a French drain around our house, and because of the topography, we have to have a sump pump. This is the back corner of the house. The house goes that way and goes this way, and the uphill side is this side. So this is the lowest point. This back corner is the lowest point in the house, and unfortunately, but every 5 to 10 years or so, the sump pump gives up the ghost. It's either the pump itself or it's the pressure switch, which controls the whether the pump turns on or not. So I'm going to unplug it. I already unplugged it, and I put this connector on here. Now, when the contractor first installed this pump, this was all hard glue PVC. There was no way to get the pump out of there. So I took this out, and I couldn't find this is a 2-inch. So I think I had to get like a 2.5-inch 2.5-inch union to get this to work. So this has a check valve here, so that the water, when it doesn't go back down, as it pushes out, and then it keeps this head full of water. So this is a little giant pump. It's a 1/3 horsepower, and it's got a pressure switch here. So I say normally this pressure switch will turn the pump on, and again, we're not sure. Could be the pressure switch. That's my guess. Is eventually the diaphragm in here gets weak, and it won't complete the connection. So we've had this sump pump, or the French drain, for almost 30 years now, and this is the third pump I bought. I just bought a new one, but it's not going to be here for another few days. So the last one lasted 9 years, so I was thinking about maybe after 7 years buying a new one as a backup. Unfortunately, this one only lasted 5 years, so you got to get a new one. I'm going to get this out of here though for now. We can't do anything with this pump, so until the new one shows up, it's a replacement, so I can just screw it in and hook it up. We're going to go with a temporary pump to get this water out of here, because when we bought the house, there was water under the house because there wasn't any kind of a French drain. So we don't want to have this water accumulating here and letting the water get into the house. That's not good for anything. So what are we going to use to replace it? I picked up this pump today at Home Depot, and it's also 1/3 horsepower, so it should be able to. It does 27 gallons a minute, so that's enough to get this drained out pretty quickly. I think it's similar to this pump, not sure exactly, but I wanted to get one that was 1/3, because there were some 1/6 horsepower ones that I think would have just been too weak. Plus this one has an automatic shut-off switch, so in other words, I don't have to sit here waiting until it drains it and then turn it off, and then come back, in a few hours and turn it on again, because the water is going to keep flowing into this French drain for the next probably a few months, because it's been raining about 150% of normal this year, and it's only December, so we're likely to have about 200% of normal rain. So let's go ahead and open this up and see what we got. I think it has enough parts that we can get this to work. Let's see what we got here. So we've got this is an immersible pump. So this is the optional check valve. We want to try to use that if we can. Let's take a look at that. Because again, it'll just keep the head on the, that doesn't look like a check valve to me. It looks like it just opened there. Oh, here's the check valve here. Okay. So here's the check valve. So it just has looks like some kind of a rubber. Oh, it's like on a rubber, on a hinge. So it's a rubber hinge. So this goes in here. Oops, there you go. Here. So we want this to flow. The water flows up through here, and then it comes out here. So this presumably attaches to the bottom of the pump, and it doesn't go in there very well. I expect it to go farther than that. I'll work on that a little bit. Here's the pump. It's a nice heavy duty pump. And it's got a, this looks like the, yeah, so it's got a 1.5 inch discharge. Is that 1.5 inch? Yeah. Maybe 1.25 inch. I think it said 1.5 inch. I'll double check. Then it's got this adapter to convert to a hose. We're going to be using a hose. I could theoretically rig up some piping to hook it up to this, but I don't think it's not going to be worth it. But we want to put this on in between. So we want this on here first. Does that have rubber on the bottom? Yeah. Okay. Let's read the instructions and see how it tells us to put it on there. That's a good idea. Okay. Frequently turning on and off immediately after turning on. Okay, the check valves to prevent excessive backflow. Okay. Doesn't really show the installation of. Oh, here it is. Here's the check valve. Okay, so what we do is we remove this adapter, which we did, and then you just put the check valve on here. Again, it's flowing up this way. We want it to flow up and then not flow back to the pump. Then we put this adapter on, screw it on. I see, and then that pushes it in as far as it needs to go. Okay. We still got this other adapter on top here. We're going to be using that because we want to end up with a hose connection. So this is the hose connection. Let's double check that. Here's my hose I'm going to be using. This is our best hose. It's a black rubber hose that I bought a few years ago. Let's just double check. Yeah, so this is a hose thread, so that's perfect. And we're going to screw this in here. I'm going to go ahead and put some Teflon tape on these connections because I don't want water leaking. So, although it's probably not a big deal, but I have Teflon tape, so I may as well use it. The less water that leaks out, the quicker we'll get this emptied. So now this pink Teflon tape is a little bit thicker than the normal white. So these kind of things where I'm not sure the tolerances are that great, I like to use this pink tape. Although it did seem to screw on pretty tightly. So just wrap it around and then slowly go down the threads away from the top. That should be enough. Alright, so that's that. Then we'll put this adapter back on. So we can just leave this on here. So the idea is with this pump, once we get the new pump and replace the old one, we'll just keep this as a backup. Okay, so that looks pretty solid. Now we're going to put some Teflon tape on this thing. So that's our adapter that screws in. It does have an O-ring at the top, so maybe we don't really need this, but I figure it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to keep as much water where it's supposed to be as possible. Okay, that's good. Okay, so let's screw this on. Not sure if I put it on the wrong direction. Figures. Okay, so we want to. I want to put it on this way. Let's see. Now I want to put it on this way. Okay. This direction. So put it on the wrong direction, it just comes off. So it should be tightening as it screws on. So that's the idea. Okay. That's better. Maybe it's interfering with the O-ring. Hopefully not. I don't know if I can get this on all the way to the O-ring. I did bring my Robo grips, so these are just big enough to move this thing. You gotta be careful with this plastic because if you tweak it too much, it can crack, which is not helpful. And I think about it, I probably didn't want to put that Teflon tape on there, but I'm going to leave it on for now. Okay, so there's our hose connection. we're going to be dropping this down into the hole and then plugging it in after that. So it's got a 10-foot cord, and you can see the distance here is only about 4 feet to the bottom, so that should be fine. Now the question is, where do we put the water that comes out of here? Normally it comes up here. Normally the water comes up here. Let's just turn that on. And goes this way through the discharge pipe, which goes out to the front yard and out a drain that's cut into the sidewalk and goes out into the gutter, which is what we want. We could discharge it onto the property, but that just causes a big muddy mess probably. There's a lot of water in here, and it's going to keep raining for the next few days probably, so we don't want to deal with that. So our plan is, look down in here, there's the discharge, and it's got this open opening. So my plan is to take this hose and actually I have to take this adapter off, but take this hose and stick it into the discharge down in here, and then use some silicone tape to make it a bigger diameter so it fills up this opening, so the water won't come back this way. I think once we get it, far enough down, it hopefully won't back up, but this is the idea, is that we're going to be making the diameter of this hose big enough to make a seal, so that there's no pressure on the other side. There's no back pressure. It's just a open pipe all the way to the sidewalk. So it should, once the water starts flowing, shouldn't be a lot of back pressure on it. So I'm not worried a lot about water leaking back. Some leaks back, it's okay. It'll just go down into the sump again and be pumped out. As long as 95% of the water goes out, we're good to go. So we're going to be wrapping this hose with this Teflon tape to make it fit into this size here, which I think is a 1.5. I'll have to measure that, but in any case, I can test it up here and then plug it in down there. So this is a 25-foot hose, which is kind of, extra than what we need, but this is what hose we got. I don't want to make a shorter hose. Doesn't really matter. It's all about how much head above the pump. That's how much water you can push. If it goes around the circle up here before going to the discharge, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so that's our next job. Let's start wrapping this hose with the Teflon, with the silicone tape. If I said Teflon, I meant silicone. This is silicone tape. This is really handy stuff. It sticks to itself and it's water resistant, waterproof. So I'll get that set up and we'll start trying that.